Is this going to be working as I want it to? Let's see. And then I'll start talking. I promise I'll get into some substance in a second. But it's been a while since I have streamed. By my recollection, a very long time. Looks like it's been about 4 months. But I just, well, not just, in August, I moved to Detroit from Denver for a temporary position for a year. As many of you know, I am an attorney as my day job, although technically I'm not practicing law actively right now, but I have a job that is for lawyers. And so I haven't been doing bulk actively since then, since August when I moved away. The reason for that is because, well, I couldn't bring all that bulk to here, to Denver, to Detroit, but also because my job is just far busier than it was last year. Last year I had a very lax job, so I can come home and reliably pack orders. But now I'm in a job where I am working 40 hours a week, if not more. Last week I worked like 60 plus hours. I had a 16-hour day. And so that just makes it not really possible to keep up with Pokemon in the way it was before in a business sense. My partner is still back in Denver, but she's not doing things as consistently either. We still have a lot of inventory, but she pretty much turns on the store for a few days at a time. We'll fulfill 100, 200 orders, and then we'll turn it off until she's able to do it again and fulfill a new batch of orders. But, I still have a lot to reflect on, so I want to talk about some of that, because from July to July, or from when we started to when I left, it was about a year. And in total, we did almost $100,000 in revenue, although that's rounding. And we did almost 10,000 orders, and that's also rounding, but still. And it's sort of shocking how it adds up over time, because if you had told me when I was starting on the bulk side that, hey, in a year you'll have almost 10,000 orders done, I think that would be something that would be very difficult to believe. But when you split that up over, say, 300 days, that comes out to something like 30 orders per day, which is honestly still a lot, but it is manageable. So I feel like we accomplished a lot over that year. And it's sort of weird. It's sort of like bittersweet that I packed orders for all that time. It was a part of my day, every single day. Bulk, stuff that was worth $1 or $2. And now it is not part of my life in that way. But there are a lot of lessons I learned and a lot of interesting things that come with that experience. I'm still doing slab stuff. I'm still sending stuff to grading and dealing with that on my own. And Mace is still doing, as I said, her side. But I'm sort of detached completely from the bulk. One of the things that we had to do as a result is we actually had a lot of bulk left over that hadn't been sorted. And we had to pretty much get rid of a bunch of it, which is super weird because we actually have some distributor connections, or just like large companies that rebundle a lot of bulk who we had deals with, and we shipped off maybe 100,000 plus cards in the course of a few days that we're trying to clear through our inventory. And it was sort of weird because it's pretty much like thousands of dollars that you just, by liquidating your inventory, you are pretty much taking profit in a way they weren't before, because so much of the year, whenever we're making money, we're going to reinvest in the business through the acquisition of new... hi there, Professor Akama. Thanks for coming by. Throughout the year, you're reinvesting so much of the money to build inventory back up, which is... so you're not profit-taking a lot. And honestly, I'm still not profit-taking because I'm reinvesting a lot in singles and all those things that I still am involved with. But it does mean that all of a sudden we shipped off 100,000 cards or whatever, and you sort of have the funds to pocket that money yourself or reinvest in other ways or whatnot. And it's super weird because I feel like a lot of the year I was living sort of on this edge where I didn't have a lot of funding because I was immediately reinvesting in acquisition. But here all of a sudden I have much more money in my bank account than I'd been used to because I liquidated all the assets, which is sort of interesting, and actually makes you understand how much you accomplished throughout the year, because when you are working day by day and reinvesting so much of the money back into acquisition, you don't really feel like you're making money because your bank account is not going up in value. You know the value of your assets is increasing, but you don't feel that day to day because you still have to like watch what you're spending and wait on the next paycheck. But when you liquidate, all of a sudden it hits all at once almost. And by the way, that wasn't all of our inventory. That was just the bulk we hadn't sorted yet. So we still actually have 100,000 cards listed on the TCG Player Store that my partner is still selling. And that's obviously still an asset that has value. But everything other than that, we sold off. And it's just super strange, I think, to see everything hit at once in terms of the work that you've been doing over a year, and sort of gratifying in that extent to see that progress. So that's nice. You know, as I said, it's bittersweet because obviously we had cut down a lot on what we had. And it's sort of weird because you can sometimes go insane by seeing all the potential profits that you could have. If you have inventory that you bought, you know, for $5,000, and you know that if you put in the work to sell it, it'll be worth $10,000, $15,000, whatever, it's very difficult emotionally to separate yourself from that potential profit. And I think this is something a lot of people face when they overwork their job because they think in their head, oh, if I just work for another hour, I'll make more money, so how can I go back to my home and see my family when I'm leaving money on the table? And I think this is just sort of an emotional thing that a lot of people have difficulty with thinking about. And it's sort of a similar thing because I've got all this inventory. I know that if I stayed in Denver and didn't take this other job and I try to sell it, there would be profits. But at some point you have to just make the trade-off that either the time isn't worth it or your other career is worth it or whatever it is. And it is bittersweet in that sense, but it was time to cash in and sort of give up the hope. Because we actually had an example where we had separated out bulk that had been older from the bulk that is newer. The bulk that is newer, like the common and uncommon, just Pokemon cards, not trainer cards, they're worth very little. So at some point last year, we stopped like even thinking that we'd be able to sort them, and that's where we found the distributor level buyer who would just take it off our hands and repackage it. But we would sort out the older cards. So pretty much everything from Sun and Moon era before, we kept in a separate pile, thinking that like, oh, these would be worth sorting in the future and listing. And there was at some point where it was clear that we would probably not be selling these old bulk cards because we just don't have the time between the two of us to sort them, list them, etc. And so I listed them on eBay in bundles of 100 cards, just, you know, old vintage bulk, 60% of it's from Sun and Moon era, 40% from older or whatnot. And Mesa, my partner, got mad at me for listing it because she still was under the assumption that she would be able and have the time to sort it and list it, etc. And then we could still take the profit off of it individually. And I saw that wasn't going to happen, I think, before she did. And eventually, I was right. She didn't have the time to do it. And she sort of admitted that it's very difficult to detach yourself from potential profits and the work it's going to take to actually make that money, because when you've just got this hypothetical pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, it's sometimes very difficult to understand the amount of rigor and work it's going to take to make that pot of gold materialize. It's not free money. And I think it really took her and me in very different senses as part of the process to understand that this work is worth doing. And I still think bulk is very lucrative depending on how you do it and what you focus on. This part is lucrative and this part isn't, and that's okay. So we just should not focus on the regular common and uncommon Pokemon, period. And we should figure out another way to deal with it. And it's sort of an important lesson, I think, for anyone going into bulk, because bulk is lucrative only if you do, if you value your time and don't do the things that aren't profitable. Otherwise, it won't be. So that was sort of interesting. I've got a bullet point list here of things that I have to reflect on. So I still think that Mesa's going to grind over the next year to try to sell the inventory that we have. And probably at the end of the year, we're going to have to sell what remains. We pretty much are still buying from one person, from one big seller in Colorado, who has just like loads of bulk and singles and everything. That's the only person we deal with. Mesa, that's the only person Mesa deals with and has to meet with. And so as we've been winding down our operation, we have gone from buying from everyone in the community to just one person, which makes things easier for her as well. Because in the past, I handled all the acquisition. She handled a lot of the sorting. But now that I'm not there to do the acquisition, she feels much more comfortable just working with the one big person that sells to us. And, something else that happened that was super rewarding is that I went to Collecticon Denver, which was a great time. Got to visit Mesa, got to see some other friends from the community. And I sold some stuff, although I didn't have a table this year, although I've had it in the past. And as I'm walking around Collecticon, I see a table with a card that I'm wanting or whatever. I'm looking, asking, haggling. He's like, I know you. And I was confused because I didn't recognize this person. And he says, you're the first person I ever bought a card from. And I was sort of surprised. And he's like, yeah, last year at Collecticon you had a table. And I bought Red's Pikachu from you. And that was the first single card that I had bought from anyone. And you set me on this path to go into Pokemon. And now this person, by the way, I had one table that previous year. Maybe I could have handled two, but not more than that. This guy was at Collecticon with 5 or 6 tables. So within 1 year, after buying his first card from me, he had such growth and went into it so hard that he could afford 5 to 6 tables at Collecticon the following year. This was crazy. And something that is, I don't know, it makes you feel good, that you are they're on the path to make this hobby fulfilling for you, but also to help set someone else on their path or whatnot, to the point where they remembered you. So that was very cool. Some other things happened. I had another big deal where I bought, I did a stream a few months ago where I bought $10,000 of cards from someone, singles. And then after that, I had another deal where I bought several thousands of dollars of cards off someone. And that deal went bad because he had pretty much valued his cards materially differently in terms of condition. And so this was really annoying because I spent 5 or 6 hours pretty much double checking the value, listing the cards, grading them, conditioning them. And pretty much the value was off by a factor of $600 or $700. Just a lot. The deal was for $5,000-$6,000 worth of cards. And had to redo it. Had to return it. So I gave him, I was like, I can take X amount of money and we can keep the deal going, or we need to undo this deal. And I made him sign a contract at the beginning because that's what I usually do for very big deals. And so we had to meet and exchange back cards. It was sort of annoying, as I said, annoying because I put so much time into it, but also sort of serves as a deterrent for big deals in the future because big deals can be lucrative, but if you have a chance, I don't know what the chance really is, 50-50 or whatever it is, that your accounting is going to be off and you're going to have to return stuff. That's obviously pretty discouraging. And it happens, whatever. I lost 6 hours of productivity, and that was the only time during the year where I lost 6 hours of productivity for no reason. But I think it is another learning experience for me that maybe in the future, when you have a deal that big, I really should take the time when I meet to take a sampling of cards to make sure we're on the same page about grading. Because what I thought, and the way the first deal went down, is we signed the contract, and then I said, hey, I'm going to go through these over the next week, and if there are any issues, I'll let you know. And I did that, and everything was fine. But I didn't actually go in person with him because it would have taken an hour, probably, to verify that everything is as it said, in terms of condition-wise, or at least a lot of it was. But I think probably going forward, when I'm doing a big deal like that, it really is worth it to sit down and take a large sampling of cards to make sure you're on the same page about grading. And, honestly, after we traded back, it ended up working out for the both of us. He found someone to buy the cards for more than I paid, which is pretty impressive because I thought that buying the cards was a losing proposition. But he found someone else to pay him more, which is good for him. And on my end, I found several of the cards for cheaper than I would have paid him, had I kept the deal going. There was one win I had where there was an Umbreon from, was it the one from Skyridge? Something around that era. It's Umbreon that I wanted. And I bought it on eBay, bid, and got it for around $300. I paid the guy $350 for his when it was probably around, light to moderately played. And I bought a similar condition one for cheaper on eBay. Just managed to win an auction, sent it to PSA, got a decent PSA grade. So things ended up working out for both of us when we traded back. But it's unfortunate sometimes when those things go sour. Professor Akoma, that's so wonderful to hear. I was eager to hear how it would go back in the day when you started talking about going into bulk, and jealous it would have been there to meet you. Yeah, thanks for your comments. Obviously, it's very cool to see people those events. Collecticons are so fun, and even if you're not vending, I think that the experiences that I've had going, which have been wonderful, have definitely turned me on to attending to more. The problem is this year I have no days off. I literally have no PTO, so I can't really swing it, but certainly when I'm done with this job, I plan to attend more and more Collecticons. It's just also tough to, when you're working a 60-hour week, to come home and really care about getting into Pokemon. PK, frequently, we've gone back and forth on this, seeing his comments, is that he doesn't understand. Hey, Mateo, thanks for watching. Appreciate your comment. PK doesn't understand why a rich person would overspend money on a card, because assumingly some rich people are smart, and why would you go out of your way to pay more for a card? And when he's talking about, for example, is like the gray felt Pikachu, why would you go before it gets a wider launch and go on eBay and overpay? And I think the reality is that the time isn't just worth it for them, because, for example, I saw a tweet going out the other day about how much lawyers make at the biggest law firms, and they'll make, say, $400,000 in a year. And you look at that in terms of an hourly basis. So let's say there's $400,000 and they work, say, 2,200 hours a year. I think that's around what you'd get. That means on an hourly basis, they're making like $180. Now, think about that on a minute basis. That's like $3 per minute. It's a lot of money. And so if you're in the shoes of someone who's into Pokemon but not an expert, and you see a card, how much time is it going to take you to know what you're buying, to be sort of an expert, or to figure out whether you're getting a good deal? Probably 10 to 15 minutes. Well, if you're already looking at, the hourly rate that they're making, they're pretty much, by spending 15 minutes knowing what they're buying, sacrificing $40-50. And for a lot of rich people, it's just not worth it. Their time isn't worth it. And plus, becoming an expert doesn't just mean looking up one card for 15 minutes. It means, like some of us, spending a lot of time learning about Pokemon, knowing a lot about Pokemon, knowing the value and fluctuations and the way the market works. So I just don't think that rich people have the time or care enough to become experts in these scenarios. And by the way, you and I, almost certainly in our lives, have very similar things when we buy when we buy certain things, act in the same way. Like, I don't know about you, when I go grocery shopping, I'm going to look on the shelf and I'm going to get the thing that's cheapest. Maybe, probably. But I'm not going to go and research in my local community who has the lowest price of eggs based off supermarket. I'm just not going to do that. It's not worth it to me. Even though I'm not, making $500,000 a year, it's not worth it to me to spend that time trying to figure out what to buy and what to not buy to save what is essentially to me 50 cents or $1. Speaking of, by the way, we just got a negative review on our TCG player, which was hilarious to me. So, as I just mentioned to you, my Mesa sells for a few days on, a few days off. And there was a card she couldn't find. This guy had bought a jungle Jolteon. And she couldn't find it, so she offered a refund. The card was worth, we had it selling for $4.70. and he left a negative review after he refunded because he said he couldn't get to our store and knew that we refunded him because the card we sold was for too cheap, and we're going to relist it and sell it for more, which is fucking ludicrous, okay? Because the card we sold was for whatever, $4.60. But if you went on TCG Player and found the next lowest listing, it was $5.10. So he literally was accusing us of refunding him on the card, turning off the entire store just to save 50 cents. Insane people. Of course, sometimes you have to deal with that. Whatever, the negative review is gonna get taken off because TCG Players as a platform is good about that sort of thing. But like, who do you think I am? Like, who are you? Is this something you would do as if you ran a Pokemon business? Would you ever dream of turning off your entire store to save 50 cents? Because if so, like, I have to seriously question your credentials as like an adult, as a human being who values what is worth to them, the decisions they make, the opportunity cost of doing one thing over another. So... Yeesh. Okay, so that was the venting about the bulk and about the business. I am right now acquiring more and more sealed product because I have connection to get sealed product relatively cheap. One of the things I bought a lot of recently is packs of Lost Origins, Astral Radiance for like $2 a piece. Buying a lot Scarlet Violet packs for as low as $160, $170 a piece, and just stockpiling that for now. I think that's probably a good way to put money back into the business. I think that packs that are that cheap in Pokemon are always a great deal. Right now MetaZoo packs are really cheap, but you don't know where MetaZoo is going to be in 10 years. There's always a risk. But Pokemon's going to be around. And historically, once a pack is 2 to 3 years old, the packs are never $2, right? And at that point, when you have packs that you're buying at such a low buy-in rate, whenever it increases even by a little, you're getting a really good percentage return. So, for example, if I'm getting Scarlet Violet packs at $1.60, and they go up to $3.50 in a few years, or in 2 years, right? That's an over 200% return. Even though $3.50 for an old pack isn't even that good. I mean, that's less than MSRP. Even if it goes up to $3.50, that's a doubling of the money, which is an incredible return. So, as a rule, I'm always willing to buy sealed product at a good price, at a really low basis price, because it's very, very difficult to lose money. I think that generally booster boxes in Pokemon, for example, are never going to go below $82, $83. In the long term, they're always going to be over $110, $115. Just name any booster box that over time, post-boom, of course, has fallen to under $100. And I think Dan from Catch 'em All Collectibles will say, well, there's no such thing as a floor price because the market could always go to bust to such an extent. You're never guaranteed a floor price anyway. And that's true. There's always like a 1% chance or like the outlier chance that the zombie apocalypse breaks out and Pokemon is no longer worth anything anymore. That could happen. But the more likely scenario is you've got this brand that's established over decades that people really value and love, and we have a historical basis to think that if you buy sealed product at a low base price, you're going to do okay, and that some sealed product is just not going to fall to a price that is too low. Yeah. All right, so I have a few other things to talk about, and then I will close. My lives are usually, I think, about half an hour anyway. So some other things that happened since the last time I did a video, which again was, a long time ago. First off, I've been playing a decent amount of video games because when I come home from work, and I don't have it in me to do a bunch of Pokemon work, I do relax through video games, so I think I might be doing some more gaming-related content going forward. I actually rebuilt my PC over the last 2 weeks, which was terrifying because I know nothing about technology, but I replaced like several different parts and added new parts to my computer, and I'm really proud of doing that all myself. I'm always afraid at any moment I'm going to break something. Like I've got a CPU, right, which is so little, and you've got to put a cooling unit on. I bought a new cooling unit. I did it all myself. Nothing broke. The computer turned on. I just felt so good because that is something that historically I've not been great at. I'm good at like writing and thinking, but I'm not good at tech. Another thing that happened is that I sent cards to the eBay vault, which still have a 0% selling fee, which is phenomenal. and I'm going to make a separate video about this later because it's such an incredible thing that happened. But I sent out about $5,000 worth of slabs to eBay Vault, and that were lost. They lost my slabs, which was terrifying for about, I don't know, a few weeks. For 2 to 3 weeks, I was very, very terrified because what happened is I sent 15 slabs, and half of them were fine and didn't get lost, and then the other half did get lost, and they went missing. And I called eBay several times, and they had no clue where they were. And so I had to file like a whole separate process thing. And they were lost. But eBay has you covered, generally. And so I had like the best of both worlds because I sent the slabs out, and they just reimbursed me through their insurance program or whatever. So they just literally PayPal'd me $5,000 for the lost value of my slabs, which saved me from having to sell them, from negotiating. Plus, they use the value that I assigned. So, you buy insurance when you ship slabs out. And so I insured them under the top amount that they could probably sell for. And that meant, honestly, it's probably 10 to 20% what they actually would have sold for on eBay had I had to go through the selling process. But they compensated me at my full value, and it was wonderful. That's the easiest way to sell something, right? If your stuff goes missing, the insurance covers it, and that's it. So I was a very happy camper. It's sort of funny because I was talking to a few people who collect cotton, and they told them that, and they were like all jealous because it's the best thing that could happen to something that you're trying to sell anyway. It's sort of crazy because I can't imagine what happened between the verification center where it went first and the vault. It got lost somewhere in the middle between getting verified and ending up in my vault. I presume that, either a FedEx employee just walked off with it, or I don't know. It probably got misplaced, got put in someone else's vault on accident. We'll see. But it was a very, very stressful experience, but I guess a rewarding one. It does annoy me because nobody benefits from theft or loss or whatever. I'm okay, but eBay had to take that loss, and it just annoys me when things are lost for no reason. So I wanted to talk about that, and then other than that, just got stuff at PSA and CGCM sending out when I have time to do so. A lot of what I've been doing is just buying alt art singles that are gradable and shipping them out. Which has been good, especially the modern stuff. I don't know about you all, though, is one thing that surprised me is that it does feel like a lot of modern alt arts from the Sword and Shield era have been falling from their peak prices. And a lot of the Japanese cards that skyrocketed in price just a few months ago over the summer have also dropped a lot in value, which has been weird. It's made me feel like the Pokemon market is a little unpredictable. But it's also, it always is, but it's also just a demonstration of the fact that people buy at peaks. And it's always one of those things where the screen promos were shooting up in price and people were buying them just for the sake of buying them because they had FOMO. And that's just not a great basis to buy cards at, out of fear. You should make educated choices on when to buy cards. And now that we've seen prices retrace back, now would be the better time to get some of this stuff. Other than that, I don't have much more to cover. I'm going to do a separate video about the eBay thing on its own, going through the financials of that and the process. And then, might do some video game content soon. And I will definitely be making more Pokemon content. I just don't know when that will be, since I've been busy. But spring is looking like it's going to be less busy. I will hopefully be able to really hone in on Pokemon more related stuff then, because my work will have less commitments. And I appreciate you all for watching. Thanks, Mateo and Professor Kuma, for commenting. I appreciate both of you. And have a great weekend to all of you.